Hello, and welcome to the Unapologetically For Truths podcast with your hosts, Lakeisha Fry and Jessica Bennett. Here at For Truths, we hold space for real conversations with a mission to explore, unpack, and find resolve for topics that impact our communities most. We saved you, our listeners, a seat at the table, and that fourth seat, that offers us all the spiritual guidance from the Most High. To stay in tune with what's true to us, make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels at Unapologetically For Truths. Now let's get into it. Hi, welcome back to Unapologetically For Truths. I am Lakeisha. We have Jessica Bennett here, and we also have a special guest, Ricky, who's with us. Hey, Ricky.
Hey.
So last episode, we were discussing mental health. We were talking about necessary tools to help the community get through mental health issues and acceptance and everything along those lines, basically. We broke off into a conversation regarding therapy as a way to manage mental health and help communities through it. And Jessica shared, her thoughts on it. I shared mine, and we really wanted to have you on to speak to your thoughts on therapy. Specifically, I mentioned working with pediatric populations, how I do think it's beneficial for children. And we really just wanted to get your take on those things and to get a different point of view.
Okay. Look, I am excited. I've been excited about it since you told me. So
Yay.
I've been excited. I think that this is such a heavy topic, right? It is so important, especially us, right? Especially women,
Yes.
for us to really like get in touch with what it is that we need to do mentally, right? We
Mhm.
deal with so much. I mean, the weight of the world is on us, right? So
Absolutely.
it's important, and that's something that I've been working on probably for the last probably 4 or 5 years now. Therapy. I need therapy. I was like, look, I gotta find something to do this on earth. You know what I'm saying? That what is gonna help me to get through my past trauma, to get through the things that I've been through. I've been through so much and still having to carry those things on top of what I've already been through. Um,
Hmm.
so I took that step. I said, you know what, I'm going to try, and it took me a couple of tries, to find the person that is your person. But boy, oh boy, I'm telling you, I'm such an advocate for therapy. Um, it has totally changed my life. Like when I say on top of what I'm doing, spiritually,
Hmm.
it has certainly made a difference. And I'm constantly you know, being the ambassador for therapy. Listen, find you a therapist, find somebody that's going to help you, find somebody that's going to take that edge and give you a different perspective, right? Sometimes we think that what did we do? What did I do for this to happen? What did I do to get here, right? What happened? You know what I mean? But not getting to the root of things and to understand how you need to manage that. So with that being said, I thought it was important around the pandemic for me to enroll my son in therapy. Wait a minute. Okay, this is working for me. He's 18 now, that was, almost 5 years ago. Um, but he struggled around the pandemic because he's a social butterfly. He likes to be around people. So that was very, very detrimental to his mental health. And I said, oh no, we're not going to do that. So let me try to figure out what we're going to do. And I searched and I found, and it was very important for me to find him a therapist that was uh, the same race as him, a therapist that was a man that could relate to the things. Because here it is, I'm a single parent, single mom trying to do the best that I can to raise a son. No father figure, all of that stuff. So I thought it was important because he has so many women around him, that it was a male. And when I say that he's still working because he was young, however, he can also see things that have changed. I can see things that's going on in his mind a little bit differently. The way that he speaks, because he's more open now to allowing his feelings to be heard. You know what I mean? So I had to make a way, and I've always been like this, for him to know that he can come to me and that we can talk, right? Okay, yeah, that sounds good and all of that stuff, right? But in therapy, I learned things on how to listen. You know what I mean? How to listen and how to pay attention to those things, right? Pay attention to not what it is, what the subject is, right? But what he's saying, right? What's the meaning behind what he's saying? A lot of times we can uh be kind of in our own heads about things, right? And what we've learned, what we've seen, those learned behaviors that
Hmm.
immediately you may throw up a guard if your kid says something, but just listening a little bit, right?
Hmm.
So be it with us being in therapy together, so to speak, I've seen a shift even in our relationship. What we have to understand and realize is that these kids are going through stuff, right? And it's aggravating, it's annoying to us. They're going through stuff. It's a little bit harder. Matter of fact, it's a lot harder than what we've gone through, right? Because of the circumstances. Things is different. The world is different. We're learning. We've learned to not do the things that our parents did, right?
Right, right.
Children. So now our children are, slightly entitled. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But having that knowledge and to know, hey, listen, I can't expect for him to have everything together because I don't. You know what I'm saying? And I needed help. So why wouldn't he need help? You know what I'm saying? Like why do I not look at that way? Um, in my all of my years of living, and he hasn't really even started his life, right? I wish that I had the opportunity to start therapy when I was younger. I think I would be in such a totally different place mentally.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and I see a change. While it takes work, you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to put in that time that you need, whether it's once or twice a week. You have to be willing to shed those tears, to have those hard conversations. I'm telling you, it was sometimes that I was like, I'm not doing therapy today because I knew that it was going to get deep down and I was going to be in here crying and snotting. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
I didn't want to deal with that. It was
Yeah.
times where therapy was so difficult only because I had to dig deep that I was tired. I was done at the end of the day. Like I couldn't do no more.
Yeah.
However, I would not change those therapy sessions for the world. I
They're
mean, to the
necessary.
point where my therapist was like, are you coming? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, no. And she's like, no, yeah, you need to come because you got to dig deep into the grain in order to really overcome some things. So I think it's a great opportunity for people.
And
I think something that she said real quick, let me jump in,
yeah.
and three things that you said. You found a therapy that fit.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. You found it that can identify with him. You just didn't say, well, hey, you're going to therapy.
Hmm.
Let me just put you over there.
Hmm.
Then you as a mother, you know what I'm saying, outside being a single, but as a mother, as a parent, you say not only that the world is in crisis, but if I don't get ahead of this,
Hmm.
my house is about to go in. You know what I'm saying? Let
Yes.
me eliminate something, get ahead of something
Hmm.
before it even starts. And
Yes.
just to piggyback what we talked about last week, where the schools will send a child home on, say, well, they need to go to therapy, and we just send them to
Hmm.
therapy. But we have not really did the homework. Is the child getting it? Why they going to therapy? That's something that Dr. Fry was speaking of a while ago. Is it the child, the light bulb, like it clicked for you?
Hmm. Hmm.
But when did it click for your son? Say, you know what? I may be getting something out of this. I may just be, just not going in because mama said I need in there, and because I'm not out playing, pickleball or football with the guys, or I'm not just, turning it up.
Right.
But I'm really getting something out of this that if I pay attention
Hmm.
to what the man not the woman is saying. Because my mother could say, well, I'm gonna send you to a therapist and just say it was a woman.
Mhm.
And then it was a cultural significant that thing you said because he was we're not a race, unapologetically for truth. It's not like a black or white, but you saw that he can be with someone that's educated and did the test and did the work as you did the research. But I'm still in my head as you talk about because it seemed like you were saying that a light turned on for your son. When did
It did.
that light turn on? Saying that my mom is sending me, but I'm getting some out of this.
I will say that it probably, because at first he's like, okay, I'll go, right? Um, but it probably, I would say it took some time, but maybe probably towards the second year is when I started to see things. Now, don't get me wrong, they're always going to have struggles, right? They are always going to deal with things that we have to help them with. However, he started to be receptive, and that's what I needed. I needed him to say, like, let his guard down and to say, okay, this is it. You know what I mean? Like something is happening. Something is going on, and that's what I see. So like even today was like a sort of not an emergency session, but it was just like, hey, you know, can you talk? Talking to his therapist, because I'm like, listen, use your therapist. If something's going on that you don't want to talk to me about, that's fine. But that's what he's here for. If something's going on in your day, don't hold it. Talk to him because he's giving you that opportunity to reach out, to text, to whatever. Um, and I love that he's able to do that, right? That at least he has a person that he can do that with. That light, when I seen the light, I was like, ah. And
Mm.
I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna try. We're just gonna try it, because I believe that it's important that the things that I'm doing to make myself better, that I at least try to instill it in him. If he leaves and goes to college and does not do anything in therapy, that's fine. I'm going to try my best to do what I can, to show him that, hey, there's a different way. There's another way. You have options. You have a community. You know what I'm saying? That you can get with, that you can talk to, that already understands you.
Right. Dr. Fry, you had something to say?
I was going to touch on the same things that you did, Jessica, pointing out those important points that Ricky mentioned regarding making sure basically that her son had a therapist that he could relate to. Because a lot of times the issues with children being able to open up, to share, to feel comfortable with an adult, they have to feel that they relate in some way. So I just wanted to point the same things out from that perspective, that was big of you and great of you, Ricky, to identify that as something important for your son, because otherwise it may have been more difficult
Right.
to for him to not only relate to the therapist, but to also be able to open up, feel comfortable, feel like, well, he looks like me, so he
Mhm.
may understand my struggles or what I'm dealing with a little bit more than someone who does not.
Mhm.
And not only the right race, but gender, because it could be the same race, different gender, but I'm not gonna say to her what I would feel comfortable enough saying to another man.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yeah.
I really commend you for that. I think that's big and I think that's very important. And we did last week talk about finding the right person,
Mhm.
in general for anybody. And maybe if you've had a therapy experience and you felt like you didn't get anything out of it, did you feel like that person was relatable, the therapist? Do you feel that they understood, your background, the struggles? Do you think they truly could empathize with you? Um, Not that they had to walk through the same, valleys that you did, but
Mhm.
could they identify? So I
Right.
just wanted to point that out, that that's very important. Um, and I feel very necessary in order for therapy to work, in order for someone to
Yeah.
get the most out of an experience with a therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about my journey, like I said, it took me some time.
Hmm.
Very first person, it was like, okay, I'm just gonna go out here and I'm gonna take this baton and I'm gonna just go. And it wasn't a good fit, okay. You know, then I felt like, because who wants to start over? You have to
Yeah.
kind of start over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but I kept going. Like it was important to me. Like I was like, I have to figure something out. This
Hmm.
is important. So then I went to another person, and then but something happened with her practice. So it was like, okay, now I gotta start over. But listen, you think about it and it's like, okay, was that my time to give up? But I was like, I'm not giving up because I need something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just can't do this by myself here. I got to figure something out. I wanted to get to the root cause of things, to face traumas, to figure out why I'm still triggered by so many things. I needed to figure it out. So then I got someone and it was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
this is it. This
Awesome.
is it.
And I
Awesome.
love what you said earlier, and it's something that not a part of the segue here is that we said that our teens are sorry, I can't say- the teens or our children do not they're going through so much, and they cannot handle it because in our day, you know what I'm saying, it was like your activity was going out to break the yard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Your activity was not trying to get you out of sports. It was more balance.
Right.
And your activity is, wash your clothes,
Hmm.
clean your room.
Hmm.
And it was there was no expectation you get anything.
Right.
But
Right.
a roof over
Absolutely.
your head,
Hmm.
a place to sleep,
Hmm.
food on the table,
Yep.
and you better make them good marks.
Right.
So I think that in this society that of course they're going through a lot of peer pressure, whatever, but the pressure there is not rooted in the foundation as we know of.
Hmm.
And it's such a falseness. And we talked about last week how society norms and it's okay. Well, you got to have this, you got to have Gucci. I get all that. You know what I'm saying? But our thing is if you got some Chuck, no, you got some Chuck Taylors, you got some. Hey, and you may have to write on them if they were from the what I'm saying from what's that store? Long Payless. You know what I'm saying? You might have to write
Check or
something on there.
the brand.
If
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're paying less, but I think that's what we have to bring our society, our culture. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? This council culture thing. Council culture is not built on the culture as we really know. If we sit back at parents and say, well, how was our real, even though our parents may have issues or whatever, but our activities and the
Hmm.
expectation that we was gonna get from that was not like I'm going to the movies.
Right.
Thank you for going to get the mailbox, cutting the grass, wiping the windows, and Saturday morning you may get a bowl of Cheerios or Frosted Flakes. Thank you. You
That
know what I'm
was the
saying?
thank
So
you,
that
right?
and that when that expectation is higher than what you're accommodating,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
then you have it's skewed where you fight against reality
Hmm.
of what you really know what you need and to a
Hmm.
child expectation that you cannot have it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
I'm
that's
sorry, I'm
perfect to
racist.
kind of segue into another thought I had surrounding this is we grew up, as you said, with that mindset, but I couldn't imagine as a child going to my parents back in the day,
Hmm.
saying, I think I need therapy. I don't think I would have felt comfortable, one, and
Hmm.
I did not grow up in an abusive home or a home where I wasn't loved. I had all the love in the world. I had all of my needs met. I still did not feel comfortable, would not have, excuse me, felt comfortable going to my parents to say, hey, is it okay for me to get a therapist? I would
Hmm.
like to, I would like to talk to somebody, not you, because it was more so in that time frame as a child, you do as you're told,
Mhm.
you don't complain, you figure it out. If there's an issue, you figure it out. It was kind of put in on our shoulders, like whatever it is that you're trying to work through, regardless of if it's peer pressure at school, you can't figure out your grades, like your grades are failing, you don't know what's wrong, or whatever the stress may be. I felt I just have, and I was not told this directly by any adult, but it was just more so that mindset, like you just figure it out, like you don't go to therapy, you just figure it out, and I
Yeah.
think that bleeds into, what I said earlier regarding the fact that our culture has not always been open or receptive to therapy. So I think that's big.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Dr. Rob, I like to say that I grew in the opposite home. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying?
Mm.
Where, it was my mom already had 6 children and she married my father and had 3 more and was not very versed in communication. The struggle was real from her from the first 6 that she was raising by herself.
Mhm.
That I felt that I was a callous of the new family blending in with the original family. And she was just burnt out. And we will talk about later in other shows or whatever, when you're dealing with parents with mental issues,
Mhm.
but you don't have them and you want to conversate and you want to talk and you cannot say anything and you better not say anything about therapy because they are already checked out.
Mm.
So we commend you, Ricky, on today's topic about doing the homework of a parent that saw a national crisis
Mhm.
to jump ahead of a brewing crisis in the home,
Mhm.
from finding the right fit to now the light bulb's on in the child.
Right. Yeah.
And then honing on to what the child needs and said, but I'm not going to leave myself behind this time.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes as parents, we'll go to work, we'll clock in, we'll do the work, we'll feed, all the things that we're supposed to do.
Mhm.
We're not gonna check all the boxes. We're just not. We're just not.
Right.
And then, but this time you say, well, while I'm feeding myself, mind,
Mhm.
body, soul, and spirit. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
Let me check in with my child. So now that it's not an imbalance in the household. You because you're going to the therapy, so you
Mhm.
understand what I'm dealing with. And
Mhm.
then I always say, if we go back and have those 15-minute conversations every day with our children, where's somebody in the neighborhood. I remember back in the day, not to
Mhm.
be, long here, that, I had Miss Betty and Miss,
Mhm.
Miss May, and there were tappers on the, and but there was still a form of communication, even though it wasn't in my household, but I
Mhm.
had a parent authority that I was
Yeah.
checking into.
Mhm.
And I want to appreciate you for checking in and doing the homework.
Absolutely. And I have one more question. I have experienced, in personal relationships of friends who have children in therapy or children with mental issues slash concerns that they feel therapy would be beneficial. And professionally, parents who purposefully do not seek therapy for their child or mention to providers that something is going on or that it could be useful, or not even, it doesn't even have to be therapy. Like, hey, this is happening and I don't know what to do about it. This is a problem in the home. It's causing discord. It's causing, relationships to falter. They don't want that child tagged as mentally unstable. They don't want that child identified as, oh, he's taking medication for depression or anxiety. So they're gonna, see him as crazy and it's gonna hinder him in his life moving forward. Um, just with therapy in general with your son, have you felt that? Has that crossed your mind? Any thoughts on that?
Okay, first, let me say this. I grew up in a home where, loving and all that stuff, my mother had her own, ways of doing stuff, which is fine. But therapy, to your point, Dr. Fry, um, was like, wait, something's wrong with you if you're going to therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, you supposed like that's what I would think is that wow, I'm sorry to say, but I'm crazy. Like I'm crazy. Like, am I supposed to be in like a mental facility? You know what I mean? Like I didn't because that's what, grandmas and that's what you heard, right? So it was kind of frowned upon. But I'm sorry. I was like, as I got older and was able to really think for myself, and I said, I had this kid, right? If something's wrong, we got to figure out what's wrong. I
Mhm.
didn't want to fail in that aspect. I don't care what he needed. You know what I'm saying? Like I tried to figure out how come he didn't want to keep his room clean. I only have one kid, right? So I don't know. I can talk to different parents and try to figure it out. I went and got him tested for ADHD. Like let's figure this out because if it's something wrong, I don't want to miss it. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? I don't care what medication he needs to take. I don't care what it is. And even for that, it took me a while to do the whole ADHD thing, testing, because I have family members that were like, no, don't do that. And I'm like, well, why not? If something's wrong and he needs help, why wouldn't I get him help? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
So that type of thing did not bother me. I was like, wait a minute, what is in the best interest of my child? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? I'm not going to let him go out into this world and not try to prepare him. Now, what he does when he goes out on his own, then that's, but I need to at least try. I wanted to be able to try everything I could while I could. You know what I'm saying? Once they turn a certain age, then it's like, it's nothing you could do.
While
But
you have that influence.
right,
Hmm.
while I had the influence, while I could, I wanted to do everything that I could. So no, those things did not scare me or anything. What do we need to do to help him? If he's
Right.
not focusing right, what do we need to do? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Um, and you made another very good point, the influence from our family, from those
Mhm.
around us, on how we should deal with certain things, is very heavy sometimes because it caused you to hesitate, right?
Mhm.
It did kind of stop you for a second in your
Yeah,
footsteps before you made that next step, but eventually you made the decision that this is what I want to do and this is
right,
how I'm going to address this. This is my child, my home. You have 18 years, right, to try to get them
right.
together and prepare them for life, so to speak. So absolutely,
Yeah.
family and community members, it's a big deal. It's a heavy influence. Peer pressure doesn't stop in school. It definitely follows you into adulthood. And there's definitely people who, expect you to, follow their footsteps or do as they say or allow them to have say so.
Yeah.
And it makes it
And
hard.
it does. It makes it
Yeah.
very difficult. But, you know, it
When
takes
the parent, when excuse me, when the parent help the child take the stigma
Mhm.
of therapy, it gives them the confidence when they go into the classroom
Yeah.
that there's nothing wrong with me from you to you, but I just need to talk this out more why
Mhm.
my mind is in this way or why my mind is
Mhm.
developed. You may be developed, and they be able to have this genuine conversation with their peers. I'm talking about from 5 years old.
Mhm.
Well, you play football, but my mind is telling me that I need to play baseball. Just something just simple as
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
it'll take that, oh, something wrong with you. No, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yep.
The school, my teacher is helping me develop who I am,
Mhm.
not who you are.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So that will help the child 1000% to walk in the classroom And when you have the therapist say, come here, they walk with the dignity, say, well, look, I'm doing this for me that I may be successful.
Yeah.
And my mother loved me just as much to sign the papers that she saw that my mind wanted to do this and to expound to see why it does this to make me a better person. Not like it's something wrong with you.
Right. Right. And that's one thing that I got, something's wrong with him. He's not, I got somebody, teachers, school faculty. He doesn't do normal things. What does that mean? Oh, well, he slapped five, while he was going from one class to another. How is that not normal? What does normal mean? You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? And I just couldn't accept that. And I had to tell them, tell people, don't say those things to him. You know what I mean? People don't understand like the influence, right? That you have over children, especially when they're younger, right? We're supposed to speak life and speak positivity into their lives, you know what I mean? And that's where, another avenue where therapy can come from. He does affirmations, so,
Mhm.
things like that. So it's like, no, 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 no. We're not going to do that. We're going to pay
Yeah.
attention because that can affect their mental health too, right? How they're being influenced, how they're being treated by people that are supposed to be people that are teaching them, that are, that are supposed to guide them, right? So,
And that's what
it
I
just,
think that
yeah.
more of the professional development training around therapy with teachers.
Mm,
We understand the pressure they're on.
mhm,
But if John is having a moment,
mhm.
don't continue to put the stigma. Yeah, I understand you got 25 other kids in the classroom,
Right,
but if you call him a problem, he's gonna stay a problem.
right, right.
If you telling him, we're gonna help you to figure out when you feel like this,
Mhm,
what the result of your consequence make you do your actions of that.
right.
And then I know they can't do everything, but the whole thing of education and therapy is hand in hand. And we
Mhm.
need to come together and say, enough is enough. It's hand in hand. It's not, I'm gonna
Yes.
pass SAT, ACT scores, and all these scores without having emotional, like Dr. Fry, emotional intelligence, side by side, same simultaneously through from kindergarten to preschool all the way to 12th grade. That
Mhm.
when that thing in their head make them tick, or it don't even have to be like we talked about last week. It don't even have to be negative. It
Right.
can be where the child is a genius and is need to come out their shell
Mhm.
because they're always talked at and not talked to. That's a
Hmm.
different. I'm telling you that this and this wrong with you, but like, hey, you got something to offer. And we talked about that last week. Everything in mental health is not have a negative connotation behind it.
Yes.
Some things that need to be developed, excuse me, developed in that child to mature at the level of expectation, but
Mhm.
help them get there about those affirmations that you're talking about, Ricky,
Yes.
about you are somebody. And
Mhm.
then when they get ready to feel, but I remember mom told me I was somebody, so I'm gonna raise my hand and say, I don't feel well with this
Mhm.
activity or whatever. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's real. And that's why I am totally an open book when it comes to this because it's necessary. Again, it takes time. It takes work. No. Is anything perfect? No. But when you can see things, when you start to see a change, even if it's a very small change, it gives hope that, you water that little bit of change, then it just continues to blossom. You know what I mean? And that's what the goal is. That's what the overall goal is for things to blossom, for you to see growth in what it is that you're doing.
And that
Absolutely.
child that, you know, this is way out here, but still on point, that you see children going to school doing some horrific things.
Mhm.
It was that one thing that
Mhm.
you avoided, like you said, that small thing
Mhm.
that was needed to be addressed. address those small things, positive, negative, address that one seed for it to develop into something that we want or don't.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Thank you so much for coming on, Ricky, for sharing with us, for being an open book. It really did help, tie up the initial conversation we had and give a different perspective. So we really do appreciate you.